All right, if you're not watching us on video, sorry you're missing out because I'm like dancing before I will press record right now. And Dr. Rachel is dancing too. If you're like, who are these crazy humans? How did I land in this crazy world? Well, welcome. This is Dr. Latifah. And I'm so glad that you're joining us on Money Fit MD show, whether it's on the podcast or on YouTube or wherever the heck you're catching us from. I'm so glad you're here. As always, we have an amazing episode today, and don't take my word for it because you're about to learn some amazing things. Just be in on a conversation between two amazing physicians, and we get to just hang out with you and talk to you about real estate, specifically about medium-term rental. So, without further ado, welcome, Dr. Rachel.
Thank you to Dr. Latifah for having me. Physician and pharmacist, right? Teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely. And maybe I'm just trying to kidnap you and have you join our world. Because, you're never too old to go back to school. She's like, God forbid. No, thank you.
I'll take a pass, but I love it.
I love it. So let's just go straight right in and talk about what I think is so mind-blowing and maybe a little counter what many people are hearing in the real estate space. So what do I mean by that? You talk about all you need is two properties.
Yeah.
Two properties for what?
Two properties to really position yourself in a way that you can cut back and get back into alignment. So whether it's going down to 0.5 FTE, 0.6 FTE, or taking a sabbatical, like someone I know who took a sabbatical for a whole year, right? And here's how I arrived at that. When I was first starting out with real estate investing, I looked at all of the strategies, anything from capital raisers who were vying for my hard-earned dollars with syndications, all the way to extremely active real estate investing, watching HGTV. Those fix and flippers will reel you in a heartbeat. By the end of the 45 minutes, you just made $40,000. It's like, okay, so this is very, very interesting. But when I ran the numbers and I did the math, I realized I didn't need a whole lot of money to get started. All I needed was to figure out how to come up with a down payment on a well-positioned, well-curated, well-appointed property. And what I'm talking about is my very first property was a 4-bedroom home, $290,000. I put $19,000 down. So I scraped everything together to get that $19,000 down payment. I used bonus checks, moonlight hours, all the things, just came up with it between my husband and I, and bought that very first property. And that property generated $6,000 per month. And at the time, that was nearly my monthly take-home pay, was $6,000 a month. And so I asked myself, what if I did this twice? And that's where the two-door strategy was born. Not one, but two doors could really put me in a position where I have options, where I have choice, where I have freedom of time. And so it really debunks the myth that you need 10 doors or 10 properties, 100 doors, 100 properties. I get it. All the real estate investors are just bragging about the number of doors. But at the end of the day, all you need is 2 doors.
Okay, so I'm kind of scratching my head, as my audience probably are right now, because so much to talk about in so little time. Be our friend. Our friend. Okay, so let me just get this. Yeah. $19,000.
Yes.
And you're making $6,000 a month. Yes, that's gross, not the profit, but still, it doesn't take a lot to get your $19,000 back.
It sure doesn't.
And you still got the property.
Yes.
And the property is still going to make money in future.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's come back. Who are you, by the way? Who are you? What do you do? Why are you in their ears right now? Where did I find you, Dr. Rachel? Can you just tell our audience? Who are you?
Oh my gosh. So I know you, Dr. Latifa, from an amazing community. We're in a real estate investing, high value women's community together. We know Dr. Chiagozi. So that's a mutual friend. I feel like our paths align in so many different ways. Initially, I was a little girl from Haiti, poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, but rich in spirit and rich in faith and rich in work ethic. I wish we were rich in money, but we're rich in work ethic.
We're
Okay.
getting there.
That's the gift God gave me, so I'm going to run with it. So from there, grew up in Miami and in the inner city. My parents taught me about faith, about work ethic, about doing a good job in school. So went on to get my doctorate. Undergrad was paid for through scholarships, which was great. Graduate school, no scholarships. So got the doctorate, hooray! But that came with a $500,000 in student loan debt. And so for me, I think that was the defining moment as to, okay, what is my life supposed to look like for the next 10 to 20 years? And so my husband, we found ourselves starting off on the Dave Ramsey path. And you and I, Dr. Latifa, were talking a little bit early in the green room. It's like, why didn't they teach us a little bit more about financial literacy when we were going to school? Because had I known what I know now, I probably wouldn't have taken out as many or as much in the student loan category as I did. But nevertheless, we're here, right? We're going to create that path for the future generations and enlighten them. But nevertheless, start off with Dave Ramsey. It gave me some traction and just that foundational financial literacy that I need to just kind of clear my mind of the rhetoric and the noise that I was sold. I was sold that don't worry, you're going to be making a lot of money. So it doesn't worry. My professor said that. And that was like the context that I was living in. Don't worry, you're just going to be making a lot of money. There's no reason to get a hold and get control over it. And so for me, Dave Ramsey was a very good starting off point. I don't recommend it for everyone, but for me, it worked initially until it stopped working. And don't come for me, Dave, if you're listening to Dr. Latifa's podcast. Don't come for me. I am Dave Ramsey-ish. I know he would hate to hear that, but Nevertheless, I was listening to a podcast and I heard Warren Buffett's quote one night working those 14-hour shifts where he stated, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. And for me, that was like, what do you mean? But how? And so I wanted to future pace myself. I wanted to see, well, what's the next few years going to look like once we get through with paying off this student loan debt? And what we were aiming towards was a net worth of $0. And for some reason, that just didn't feel good. Yes, we're getting out of debt, but a net worth of $0 did not motivate me. It did not inspire me. It didn't feel good. So I found myself taking off the Dave Ramsey hat. Now that things were under control, I understand my financial literacy. I knew where my dollars were going. We weren't doing all this extraneous spending that wasn't necessary. I found myself putting on the Bigger Pockets hat, which at the time was a really great podcast for those who are looking to get into real estate investing, because I had determined, okay, I don't quite understand cryptocurrency. The stock market isn't totally lighting me up. What else is there? And so we did real estate and got really excited, started off with one property and then a second, and then continue to grow from there.
Wow. Wow. And so that was, you were practicing as a pharmacist this entire time.
Yes.
Are you still practicing as a pharmacist right now, or what does your life look like these days?
Okay, so that's a great question. I struggled with that for a while. I'm not practicing anymore. My life looks amazing. I am full-time in real estate investing. I invest actively. I've built out my system, so it's semi-passive because of the systems that we've built out and the teams that we've built out. I built a community of busy women medical professionals who are looking to get started with the short-term rental and mid-term rental realm. So that's what I do full-time. I have a husband, a whole husband. I have 2 boys. I have 2 dogs. So we're college shopping this year. So it's a very interesting year. So our lives look a bit more flexible, but I am no longer practicing in healthcare. The last time I practiced, I want to say was June of 2023. So it's been over a year since I've semi-retired.
And is it safe to assume that real estate is what helped you make that difference in terms of the financial difference when it comes to deciding to leave being a pharmacist?
100%. Real estate was definitely the door opener for that. And when I realized that, okay, so for the amount of hours that I'm putting into real estate versus the amount of hours that I'm putting into the W-2 or the 1099, the restrictions, the schedules, my initial goal was to cut back. I did start to cut back. And eventually, I think I actually, full transparency, we're going to be transparent here. I got an email I didn't like, and I did what I told everyone in my community not to do. Never rage quit your job. I rage quit.
You're like, I'm done. I'm out of here. But you
Yeah.
probably were done before that email. You just needed something to make you courageous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it becomes an interesting thing. It's like when you're done, your whole, your motivation, I don't know, there's a lack of motivation. There was just, it was really messing with my head, I think. So I probably was done 6 months to a year prior, but it just took one little thing to just push me off the ledge.
So I'm curious, when you started real estate, did you have the mindset that you were at some point going to be quitting,
No.
or you just wanted to grow your net worth past zero? Like, what was and the reason why I ask that is many times I think people think that they need to know what they want in future, and they need to want to quit in order to want to have other options of earning money.
Yeah, no. I don't think many of us who come into healthcare enter in to this field of caring for others to quit, right? Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine myself quitting. I only imagined myself just kind of creating and curating a schedule that was more of a part-time schedule, or even a schedule where I get to work 3 or 4 days. I remember I used to love those 4 10s. I just want to work 4 10s, now that we're talking about it. I just remember that so that I can have a 3-day weekend guaranteed. And so having that flexibility to create that for myself was the ultimate goal. Having the flexibility to honor my non-negotiables, which my health was taking a beating. So my non-negotiables now are I go to work out 3 days a week, no matter what. But sometimes due to work schedules, I wouldn't be able to honor my own non-negotiables to myself, having those dinners every night or 3 nights a week minimum. I've got teenagers, so you got to check in to see what's going on. So those were the non-negotiables that were always, I would say, under attack with having these longer work schedules. And, our wonderful patients, right? They have heart attacks at the same time. And I was in cardiology. And so it's like, why is everyone having a heart attack simultaneously? And so it would require me to stay longer, to chart a little bit longer, because I was like directly assisting the interventional cardiologists and working with those teams. And so it just, I wanted the flexibility to say no. I wanted the flexibility to say yes when I wanted to, no when I wanted to, and I just didn't have that. And that was the point. The point was I wanted to create an extra revenue stream on the side that did not necessarily require, I would say, an extreme amount of time, hours and hours and hours of my time, because I didn't have the capacity to onboard a whole other job. And that's what I was looking for. And that's what I actually found with real estate investing, specifically the midterm rental strategy.
Okay. So your first property, was that a midterm
It was
strategy?
actually it was a short term that turned midterm. So I stumbled upon midterm while doing the short term. It's interesting what you discover when you actually enter into the game. So once you're in the game, you start to see what else is out there based on the demand in your particular market.
So for those that are listening right now and they're like, okay, what is short term? What is midterm? Like, can you define those words for us so that we're all on the same page here?
Yes, I do love that. And I want us to level set. So think of it this way. A short-term rental is kind of like an Airbnb property where a guest can book your furnished home for 2 nights, for 3 nights, and so on and so forth. A midterm rental is a bit of a longer stay. So it's more like a month to month stay. Those properties are either furnished or unfurnished. We focus on the furnished side of things. And then a long-term rental is probably the most commonly known. These are typically unfurnished properties that tenants will rent out for a year or more. So those are the three categories. We specifically focus on short-term rentals and midterm rentals. Now, the sub niche for the midterm rentals that we focus on are helping families who are displaced from their home due to some type of catastrophe, due to some type of disaster. So these are our disaster displaced midterm rentals. But I will alert you, there are a variety of reasons people need month to month furnished housing. It could be higher education. So say a professor is coming to town to teach on something very specialized. They're going to need furnished housing for a few months. Right now we're in a political campaign period. So if you're near a capital, political campaign staff need midterm rental housing. We also serve the film industry in our local market. There are several infrastructure bills that have been passed throughout the US. So we get a lot of construction workers in certain markets that come in that are very specialized folks on the pipeline, and they come in with all these weird trucks. And so they need month to month midterm rentals as well. Our favorite that we focus on that is recession proof, that we get increased month after month after month, are those, again, those families who are displaced from their homes due to either an accidental disaster or a weather related disaster, man-made or natural disaster. And the insurance pays us, not the individual, but the insurance pays us month after month after month. And these folks, they stay in our homes anywhere from 4 to 13 months. So these are some of the absolute best guests that we have. We love the midterm rental strategy.
Why do you love those people, and why midterm rental versus short-term rentals?
With the midterm rentals, I get paid my same short-term rental rates, number one. And these are longer stays. So less turnovers, less hassle. The guests are extremely grateful. Their home just caught on fire, for crying out loud. So they're just glad they're in a nice, safe home away from home. My operating expenses for my midterm rentals compared to my short-term rentals are cut down by half. So for short-term rentals, yes, you're making a lot of money if you do it right, but your operating expenses are anywhere from 35 to 50% that you're putting back into the business to pay your cleaners, to refresh your consumables, to replace linens. With midterm rentals, my operating expenses are anywhere from 12 to 18%, significantly less. Same revenue coming in. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And the reason also is because we're able to take them off of the platform. So once they book us through Airbnb, of course, Airbnb is one of the places where the insurance is finding us, one of many places. But the subsequent months when they're renewing, we don't necessarily have to use Airbnb anymore. You get an automatic raise. That's 3 to 20%. In savings and in revenue coming in, because they're charging the guests and they're charging you those fees. So that's how we're able to capture some of those operating expenses as well. And again, you're helping someone in your community who is facing one of the most difficult times of their lives. Some of them, again, they've encountered a fire. Just had a family that lightning struck the roof. A fire, it caught on fire, and then it rained. So talk about decimated, right? Decimated. They've lost almost everything. And so it's a win-win-win. You get to support a person in your community. You get to get paid your Airbnb, the higher rates. It's a win-win-win. And then those longer stays, these are, again, lower intensity guests. So once you put them in, you don't hear a peep from them. I just have my cleaner go in once a month just to make sure everything looks okay. You want to protect the asset and make sure that, everything's going well.
I love it. I love it. And so when it comes to short-term rental, one of the questions people ask is things like what market? Like with midterm rentals, how does that compare when it comes to looking for a good property or in the good quote unquote location? Is it as difficult? Do you put the same factors into play as you did for Airbnbs or short term rentals, I should say?
Yeah, I love the question. And so in between our midterm rental stays, we still operate as short-term rentals, just to bridge the gap. Between six of our properties, we had 9 days of vacancy over the last 12 months. And that's because like those in between times, we allow those 2 night stays. So we are still using short-term rental data as well to identify properties that would make a great hybrid short-term and midterm rentals. I would say if you want to focus primarily on midterm rentals, you wouldn't necessarily want to go into the traditionally touristic markets like the beachfront properties, right? So those properties are probably going to be at risk with hurricanes and things like that. So you want to go a little bit more inland for midterm rentals. The only two markets I would say would not work well for midterm rentals are markets where there is extreme seasonality, similar to what we talked about, the touristic markets, say Cape May, Jersey Shore, where all of those beautiful homes, those are secondary homes, right? Those are secondary homes. And I know this for sure because I had a client come to me and say, hey, this property, will it make a good midterm rental? We evaluated, we tested out. It did not, because if something were to happen to those secondary homes, well, the family can go to their primary home, right? So you're looking for an area where there's a lot of owner occupied homes. Owners have better insurance than renters. So I love markets where there's a high density of owner occupied homes. And then the second market that I would exclude are extremely rural markets. So for instance, if there's one house and then there's 100 acres and then another house, there's 100 acres, there's just not enough volume to support this model. Other than that, I think most markets work really, really well. Now, as far as the markets where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, the highest dollars, the highest value, I like markets that are outside of 3 states. Okay. So don't come for me if you're in these 3 states. You're going to say, oh, it works. I'm doing it in such and such state. It still works for me. I get it. I get it. But if you have a property in those states already, yeah, go for it. But I'm not going to go and invest in these 3 states for this particular model. Number one, California.
I already knew you were coming for us. We
I came
already
for
like
years,
that
bro.
disclaimer was too long. I knew that I was gonna be negative. Yo, we're used to it, but we doing it anyway. But go ahead, go
We're
ahead.
still doing it. And I love it. I have students who are crushing in California, but to tell you, hey, your number one place to go and invest is California. You won't hear that coming from me,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm gonna come for me too. Florida and Louisiana. And the reason, and I'm going to give you my, this is my, this is speculation. This is speculation because no one else is teaching this the way I'm teaching this. Okay. This is speculation. The reason I don't love those 3 states to go out and invest for this strategy is because they have state subsidized homeowners insurance. And so that gets tricky. That gets very, I would say it's volatile. We just never know what's going to happen. Every day you hear there's a fight between the state and the homeowners insurance. The whole homeowners insurance industry threatened to leave Louisiana at one point. So for me, that's like, that doesn't feel like it's the safest. But I have people in California, Long Beach. So I have a client, Tony. Shout out to Tony. He's in Long Beach, California. He just got a really nice midterm rental guest. It's a couple, husband and wife. They're older. They wanted a property without stairs. He's on the second floor on a condo. He was barely covering his overhead of like, I want to say $2,100 a month. He got a booking for $4,700 a month for a 2-bedroom condo. It is on the second floor, but he has an elevator and he has a ton of parking. They were worried about parking. So $4,700 a month for the next 6 months when he was barely covering his overhead using other strategies. So he is loving it. He's in Long Beach. I've got Mercedes. She's got 12 condos and she's crushing it as well. And I prefer single family homes, 4+ bedroom. But my clients, they just kind of debunk me all the time. And I love that. I have those in Florida who are doing well. Louisiana, we just heard 3 increase come through in Louisiana. So although they're threatening to take homeowners insurance out of these states, it seems to be working, but I am hesitant to go into those states and say, you know what, let's all invest there. So I got trust issues.
No, that makes sense. I mean, when I started investing in real estate, our main thing was I did not want any investment properties to turn into a liability.
Yeah.
And for me, the definition of that was I did not want anything adding stress to my clinical income. So cash
Mm,
flow had to happen, right?
yes.
And when you're trying to buy in California for long-term rentals and you're like, I'm not budging unless it cash flows, all the real estate agents are like, she's delusional. Like it's impossible. But we did.
You
And we
found it.
ended up, yeah, we did found, right? So, but I agree with you that it may take longer, there's higher risk and all that. So if somebody wants to get up, and I agree with you 100%, that may not necessarily be the best place. Don't like, there's no reason why you should live outside of California and trying to invest in California.
Yeah.
Like, like what? Like why? Why?
Right.
Why? Like, come
Right.
on, why? Right.
Right.
So I'm with you, even though I gave you a hard time earlier on. So no, this is good. So let me ask you though, when you're so someone comes to you and they're like, Rachel, I'm a pharmacist, I'm a dentist, I'm a physician, whatever they do.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm hearing about this midterm rentals. I love my work, but I don't have any real estate experience, because it's easy to ask the question like short term, medium term. But someone is looking from out there and they're like, I got none. Like, what advice do you give people that want to get started on having options in general?
Yeah, what I love about our healthcare professional industry is that I'm finding that everyone who comes to me, they come from a different place. And so my first thing is, and I hate to ask a question with a question, but I would ask the question with a question. And the question would be is what type of investor are you? And so that framework looks like this. For instance, are you a cash flow crusader is what we call it, where you're looking for cash flow. Like you just said, I'm looking for cash flow. I need this to pay for itself and then to bring home some bacon, right? And I learned this the hard way because I was in that mindset. It was like cash flow, cash flow, cash flow until I met some of our senior members of our community who are like, you know what? I don't really need the cash flow. I want a legacy play. I'm 72 years old. I've got grand and great grands. I want to finally do something that is going to be impactful for the next 2 to 3 generations so that we can all come together in a home. And that's how we were able to purchase a 13-bedroom home that I hated the numbers because there was only a 2 to 5% cash on cash return. But that's exactly what he wanted. That's exactly what he needed. He just wanted something that would cover its expenses and something the whole family got to enjoy every single quarter together. And so for him, he falls into my lifestyle investor category, which is totally different. So that's where we would do a discovery of like, which one are you? So I'm assuming if you're listening to Money Fit MD, most likely, more than likely, you're part of my Cash Flow Crusader crew. And from there, we would just continue to do an analysis to figure out, well, what is in alignment with you? For the midterm rental strategy? Are you looking to purchase? What is your budget looking like? Where are you comfortable? And so I've created my own buy box. So if you were to just copy and paste Rachel's buy box is a purchase price of less than 700,000, preferably closer to 400,000 if we can find some things. It's been a challenge, but we're finding property in the $500,000 dollar range. I will use a tool like AirDNA. That is my number one tool for evaluating properties. And they have over 6 years of data that we can lean on to see how properties have been performing for the past 6 years. And they even have future pacing data to look at, well, what are the bookings looking like for the next year or so? So I love that tool. And I'm going to evaluate, well, whether or not the market already is attracting visitors. So one of the number one metrics that I'm using is they have a rentalizer tool. They've renamed it. But if I put in an address, or if I put in a city, if I put in a state, I'm looking for an occupancy rate on there at 50%. If there's a 50% occupancy rate, that's enough. That for me, that tells me, okay, there's people actually visiting this market. That's a huge metric for me. I have seen so many people go into a 30% occupancy rate, 20% occupancy rate, and it essentially is very rural. There's only a Tractor Supply store there, and it's not an area where you're going to be able to generate consistent amount of revenue. So you're already starting off in the negative, unfortunately. So that's number one, occupancy. Number two, I love markets where I can find a property, say for $500,000, that would generate $100,000 a year gross. So that would be my gross yield of about 20%. So that's my sweet spot there. If I can get close to that, like a 15% gross yield, that's fine as well. If I'm looking at a 10% gross yield, I don't love it, but I'll put on my bulletproof vest and make it happen because I know the levers that I can pull to rev up the revenue, but I would never do that with investors' money. I do work with some investors as well, but for myself, I would do a 10% gross yield. But my sweet spot, my absolute favorite, is a 20% gross yield, and we just closed on one in San Antonio, but it was very specific. It was very specific. Don't go running to San Antonio, Texas, and buying anything. It had to be very specific to get those numbers. So it was $530,000. It was on sale for $570. It was $530. After the negotiations, surprise, surprise, it's a buyer's market, and then we're expecting anywhere from $97,000 to $120,000 a year on that property.
I love it. So interest rates are interesting is the best way to call it. And, people have different thoughts about it. People that have been around for longer say those that were 3% are spoiled because that's not real life. You're always just enjoying a treat. I'm curious to see, like, with the interest rate as is, and it's been in the last year or two, what has been your experience with being able to find things that still make money? And again, regardless of whether it's a cash flow play or lifestyle or both, because it's a spectrum, right? At the end of the day, you don't necessarily want to be dipping into your pocket to take money to pay for the property. So how are you still able to make the numbers work even in this market today?
That's where analysis comes in. You really want to run the numbers and then you want to take action, right? We don't want to get stuck in analysis paralysis. So you want to take your interest rate into consideration. You want to evaluate the models that you put out there. I like a DSCR, like a debt service coverage of 1.5, for instance. What I'm making per month should cover my debt service by more than one, right? 1.5. And that's a good number to keep in mind if you're going to use a business purpose lender as well. Other ways I've seen individuals in our community take advantage of investing right now, even with a little bit of a higher interest rate, is by putting a little bit more money down, which we don't always love because I love to hold on to as much cash as possible, but they'll put a little bit more money down and start off as a short-term rental and then do the bonus depreciation to get some of that money back right away or within the next tax year. And then they look to refinance. So those are some strategies. I know another strategy that some members of our community, they use a 10% down loan, which is a lower down payment. And because of the way the loan was set up, it depends on the lender, they were able to refinance and get rid of the PMI. So it's not an interest rate question, but again, it answers the questions of how do we make sure that we're not coming out of pocket month after month. So if you have PMI on your loan right now or on a loan, look at how to figure out how to get rid of that PMI. And it could be a simple internal refinance. I forget what our team lender calls it. And our members have been taking advantage of that as well.
And that can definitely add up, right? Because if you're doing a PMI, which is it mortgage insurance? Private mortgage insurance, that number can really variable. Like it can add to your expense every month, right? So if we're talking about cash flow or not having a liability on your hands, something as small as that could be a leak that's eating into your profit margin. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier that I want to make sure that those listening understand. So you talked about short-term rental and doing cost segregation the first year. Without taking too much time, do you want to just give us like briefly in 30 seconds? Imagine that. Give us a masterclass on bonus depreciation in 30 seconds.
Okay. So let's disclaimer, right? I'm not a tax professional, but the bottom line is this. If you put a short-term rental property into service, there is a tax law and legislation that allows you to take advantage of 60% bonus depreciation. This is a short-term rental tax loophole that's out there. You do not have to have reps status for that. That's a whole other masterclass. So typically you have to work full time doing real estate investing to take advantage of this type of benefit. But because it's a short-term rental, you do not have to have rep status. Back in 2022, it was 100% bonus depreciation. In 2023 is 80%. In 2024, it was 60% bonus depreciation. I highly recommend that you speak with your real estate CPA. If you have a CPA, you mentioned the words bonus depreciation. And if they don't know what you're talking about and you're really interested in investing in real estate, move on to a CPA that understands that. They'll help guide you and even help you to plan into the future, because that's what we need. We need someone to help us to future pace. We don't just need a CPA to look in the past, what happened, how much you have to pay in taxes, but hey, let's future plan. And our CPAs are saying, okay, Rachel, you need to get 2 properties purchased before the end of the year to make sure that we can save on all of these taxes. Those are the higher level conversations I want your community having.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's okay to pay taxes.
Yeah.
To each their own. You pay however much you want to pay, but I get little twitches on my body when I think about the number of days we work as if you're a W-2 earner to pay taxes. And there aren't too many opportunities or ways for W-2 earners to cut down on their tax liability. And the short-term rental loophole, if you want to Google that, I've had other interviews with SDR, short-term rental. Dr. Chia Gozafawali was on here talking about that. We'll have that in the show notes for anybody that's interested. But that's something to learn about what the benefits are, but also what the potential risk could be, and how you want to make sure you don't let the risk scare you, but make sure the risk help you put in a plan so that you can make sure you're, future safeguarding yourself, but not fear mongering your future either. So thanks for bringing that up. The other question I want to ask you now is, so tell us a little bit about your community, actually, because I know you work with any humans or women only. What? Because I get questions like, literally someone sent me a message on LinkedIn. I was like, why only women physicians? And I almost replied, I don't like dudes. Laugh out loud, but I do like dudes. I'm married to an awesome guy, but sometimes women just need their space. But I'm curious, who do you work with, and who does not work well in your community? I think that's sometimes good to know as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. And I'm married to a dude as well. I've got 2 boys, so I love our fellow dudes. But I target primarily women in healthcare who are looking to get started with real estate investing, who are newer to real estate investing strategies, specifically short-term and mid-term rentals. Although I do attract quite a few dudes, and I'm happy to work with them. I'm happy to support them as long as they know that my focus is truly on this particular category of individuals. And the reason is that that's where I come from, and I could speak the language to the T. I know what it looks like to be her, juggling it all, stressed out, fighting for my life. And that is how we built out our systems, so that we can use 2 or 3 short hacks that could save us 20 hours, right? So these are the things that the women in our community, they appreciate. Oh my gosh, that saved me so much time, because time is it's the currency that we live by. And I think that's very, very important. So as long as you're a dude and you feel like, nope, I can rock with you, I'm more than happy to rock with you as well. But know that a lot of the information that I'm sharing is it's tailored to those women in healthcare, moms, minority women who may feel as though, well, they don't have the access that most people may have. And so I love to bring in the resources, rally in the troops to make sure that we're getting deals done. We're hitting those milestones. We're checking in, and that's why I just love this community. So we have doctors investing in real estate, short-term and midterm rentals. That's the name of my free Facebook group community.
I love it. And we're going to make sure we include the link here for how people can find you. Because guys, anytime you're investing, I love having plan A, plan B, and plan C if possible. Exactly. And I don't know if I told you this, but we actually chose to rent out our primary home when we're traveling
Yeah.
for a short period of time in there. And it was to those audience that you mentioned was a family that did not have access to their home because they were in a fire. And the beauty was we didn't have to deal with them. You know, these are people that have homes. So they understand what it means to be an homeowner, which was important, right? So they're more likely to take care of your property.
Yeah.
You know, and the insurance company was paying directly. So I ain't dealing with no peoples. You know, so there's definitely, I think it's something that more people should learn about, can learn about.
Yeah.
And also just knowing that it's an option. If you already have a short-term rental and you're trying to look at the numbers to see maybe the occupancy rate is not doing so hot in your market, is this an option? So I love, love, love that you do that.
And I want to jump in real quick because I think you said something that I think is causing pause in the community when they think, oh, wow, that's a longer term rental. What about evictions? What about tenant rights and things like that? And you nailed it on the head. We don't really worry about tenants' rights and evictions for the most part because again, these are families who have a home that is under construction, that their home is probably going to be way better than they could have ever imagined because it's under construction. So the last thing they want to do is squat in your property. They want to get back to their home. And I think that's something that gets missed. So thank you for bringing that up. That's another perk to this midterm rental strategy. When you're dealing directly with the insurance, you understand the family situation. They're not going to be fighting for, you know, tenant rights. They're not going to be squatting in your property. Knock on wood, something bizarre could happen on any given day in the current world that we live in. But we've never had that issue with a owner. I will warn you, if it is a renter, beware. If it's a renter, beware. But owners, we've never had that issue with owners.
So essentially, you're saying ain't nobody want your raggedy home. Your relative raggedy home. They got a mansion. They don't want your place. They just need a roof and sanity and peace and quiet and all that good stuff. I'm not gonna. I'm just joking, but
I go to my rental sometimes when I want to be like in a nice, clean, sterile environment versus my personal.
With
no stop
view of
messing
it.
up the rental.
I love it. I love it. I love it. No, this has been so good. I have a last minute question. So I heard you have well, it depends on when people are listening to this, but you're hosting an event.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up. Tell me about it because I heard about it and I'm like, you got to tell my peoples in case, you know, you have someone that's like perfect timing.
Okay, so this is the must attend event. So what we have going on is an amazing retreat. It is 3.5 days. It is an exclusive 3.5 day retreat in beautiful Serenbe, Georgia. Now, Serenbe is just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. This is happening October 16th through 20th. It is immersive. Here's what we have found in the past that we are so excited about is that when our women busy professionals, they attend somehow, okay, caveat, we have a lot of men who signed up this time, okay? But when they come into this environment, it's like I'm plucking them away from the day-to-day stressors. I'm plucking them away from their day-to-day responsibilities, and we are getting the work done right then, right there in the room. This is perfect for anyone who said, you know what, before 2024 is over, I need to figure out how to launch one of these midterm rental, short-term rental property hybrids that Rachel keeps talking about. So this is an opportunity to just really dive into the strategies. These are the strategies that I use for my business. These are the strategies that are helping others right now. And so I am so looking forward to it. This is again happening in October 2024. We are bringing in some of our experts related to tax strategy, experts for real estate, realtors and lenders. They're coming alongside of us. I've curated our speakers to make sure that we are going step by step throughout the process. And you also gain access to all of our guides, our teachings prior to attending the retreat. We have pre-retreat trainings because at the end of the day, I want you to walk away from the event with either a launched property or an optimized property. If you have a property, we have members who have a long-term rental. They need to figure out how to optimize it to a short-term rental. We can do that as well. Or if you're looking for a property, we will narrow down your markets, find the exact property that you should invest in, the one that is right for you, and then put it under contract. That is the goal. And so I want to make that
That
happen
sounds
for the
great.
community.
No, that sounds amazing because when I think about life and business, it sounds like there are times when just taking time away, stepping to the side is just good to get optimal work done. So even though it sometimes may feel hard to leave home, sometimes that's actually what you need so they can have that accelerated immersion, networking, and all that stuff. So I love that you're offering that for people interested in medium term and short term rentals.
Absolutely. Sometimes you gotta show up in the room though, right? I've always liked to, learn virtually, but I know when I show up in the room is when I am actually taking it seriously and I'm actually doing the work. So I really, there's something magical about actually showing up in the room for sure.
I 100% agree with you. Wow, this has been so good. So I want to say
Well,
thank you for coming to hang out with us. Thank you for being so generous. That's one of the things, by the way, that I've admired about you. And
oh,
guys, I want to make sure, when I invite people to my podcast, I'm not just inviting any person that's walking down the street. I get requests. I don't necessarily honor them. But I invited Rachel because I just love a heart of generosity. I love the abundance mindset. You're very quick to offer your help to people. And I do believe that when we do that more as a human race, that our world will be better. So that's more of like a by the way, whether you know you're doing that or not, it's something that I've noticed about you constantly. So thank you for being that, for doing that. Because at the end of the day, yes, this is part of your work. But this is also part of like giving and serving. And it's not just when you charge people that you earn. You're very generous with the knowledge base you have. So I want to say thank you for bringing that to our audience as well.
oh, thank you so much for having me. Same to you. I believe the rising tide lifts all boats. So you've given generously as well inside of our communities that we're in together. So thank you so much for having me.
Where can they find you? We're going to put that in the show note, but tell them, for those that
Yeah.
are listening and are like, tell me now.
Sure. So my brand is Short Term Gems. The easiest way to find me is by tapping to a free gift that I have for everyone. If you go to 75gems.com, that's 75gems.com, you'll get a free resource, my top 75 cities for investing in short-term rentals. And that'll kind of siphon you through to our social media and all the things as well.
Fantastic. All right, guys. So when I told y'all we're going to have a lot of good stuff, did I lie or did I not lie? Tell me in the comment if you're on YouTube and if you're on podcasts, make sure you leave us a review. Let us know what you liked about this. And like anything else that I say, guys, we're not here to entertain you. We're here to help you change your life. So take something, take action, move forward. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, so that all of our lives can change together. So love you guys. Thanks for being part of my world. And thank you so much, Dr. Rachel, for coming to hang out with us.